Let's get a view on the ground. Alex Tureman, founder of Bondi Partners, joins us live via Skype in Washington, D.C. Alex, we've been looking forward to speaking with you. Thanks for joining us here on AusBiz.
Of course, Ingrid.
Give us a view on the ground there. What's it like?
Well, you and I have been speaking about this every week for about 6 months. It's a little eerie, I'll say that. You know, a majority of the shops here in Washington are boarded up. I just drove up from Florida yesterday. The feeling on the ground there's a lot of anxiety, I think, on both sides of the aisle. But like you guys said, the polling's all done. The rallies are all done. The advertising's all done. The fundraising's all done. So all that's left is to count these votes. And, you know, we got about a little over 2 hours before the first polls start closing.
Alex, more than 100 million Americans voted before polls open. What does that tell you, and who do you think that would favour?
Well, you know, there's actually two components to that. I think some of it is anxiety over the coronavirus. Folks wanting to get into polling locations or get their ballots to drop off or do mail-in prior so that they wouldn't have to be in crowded locations, early vote locations. But also part of it, as you referenced, is enthusiasm. There's over 100 million early votes and mail-in ballots this early vote season. That is unprecedented, to say the least. In 2016, we had 138 million ballots altogether. By this point in the night, we don't have those numbers in just yet, but we could have eclipsed that. And I expect that there's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 155 to 165 million ballots cast over the course of this election. So that is a massive increase. And frankly, usually higher turnout benefits Democrats, and usually higher turnout, regardless of who the incumbent is, hurts the incumbent, because it shows that folks didn't feel like they made the right decision 4 years ago, and they want to either get out if they didn't vote or potentially change their vote. Okay,
so what are we watching in terms of the polls? Where are the key states we're watching, I guess, to give us an idea if we may get a result as early as, you know, tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, I think you got to look at it chronologically across time zones. So the states that I'm going to be watching out of the gate tonight are Florida and North Carolina. North Carolina had a little bit of a mix-up today. Some of their polling locations had some hiccups with printers and stuff, so they extended the deadline in 4 locations. But Florida's the early result on the eastern part of the state is going to come in right after 7 p.m. Florida's unique in that it has 2 voting time zones, because the western part of the panhandle actually closes at 8 p.m. Eastern time, whereas the eastern part along the Atlantic closes at 7. So I'm going to be focused on North Carolina and Florida out of the gate. Then you get to some states that could potentially be in play for Vice President Biden in Ohio and Georgia. And those are states that traditionally are conservative states. Ohio's been squarely in the Republican column if a Republican ends up winning the presidency traditionally. And then, of course, we're going to start moving west. We're going to look at places like Texas, Arizona, those sorts of states on the West Coast where the polls are going to close later.
Alex, given what you've already told us, it sounds to me as though you are expecting a Biden win, even if it's a moderate victory there. Is that also essentially what the markets have priced into this point?
Yeah, you know it is, but, you know, I would never hold it against Donald Trump to surprise us all. But frankly, Vice President Biden is doing better than Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago. And let me just go back really quickly to the states I'm watching. Of course, I'm watching the upper Midwest. Those states, the blue wall that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 and Donald Trump won in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. But the difference in those states is that because of state rules, they can't start counting their early votes or their mail-in votes until Election Day. And even in 7 counties in Pennsylvania that Trump won in 2016, those county administrators, which can make the decision themselves, have decided that they're not going to start counting mail-in ballots until tomorrow. So those 3 states specifically, it could go into late in the evening, early in the morning, or potentially days from now.
The question here is on concession and conceding. If we do see a clear Biden win, which we're not sure what we'll see, but if we did see that hypothetically, do you expect to see Trump concede, or is that something that's out of the question?
Well, I think Biden's going to have to win one of those earlier states, North Carolina, Georgia, or Florida, because that's going to really limit Trump's map. If he doesn't win Florida, it's game over for him. If he doesn't win North Carolina, it gets close, because you know that Vice President Biden's specifically strong in Wisconsin and Michigan. But I think everyone's expecting that President Trump will not go down without a fight. And the conciliatory language of past presidential losers probably won't be there. Tonight in Delaware, Vice President Biden is planning to give a speech at some point, most likely when we start getting results from some of those Florida, North Carolina, Georgia states. And his speech is primarily going to be centered around healing the nation and bringing us together in unity. Kind of those messages that have been there since day one on his campaign. But I don't expect President Trump to reach out an olive branch by any means.
Well, Alex, you've got a long night ahead of you, I'm sure. We appreciate you joining us here on AusBiz.
Just getting started.
Yeah, Alex Tureman there joining us out of DC. And we really appreciate his time. We'll be speaking with him again tomorrow for an update.